Welcome to Bipolar Afterthoughts, and today I'm doing something a little bit different because I'm kind of retelling something I posted to TikTok. And if I look tired, that's because I am exhausted. But besides that point, what I'm talking about today is playing the victim versus actually being a victim, if that makes any sense. If not, it probably will by the end of this video. So, I know I said I was going to deviate a little bit from personal experience, but this will include, again, some of my personal experiences. For that, I apologize. But, anyways, I had this friend who said, consistently, I played the victim in one way or another. Sometimes just outright, other times more subtly. And let me preface this by saying I think that as a friend, you totally should talk about their problems just as much as you do yours. You should ask them questions and inquire about their life just like you do with yours. It should be pretty much 50-50, as much as 50-50 can actually be a thing. However, with that being said, there was this point in my life where things were hitting me left and right, time after time after time, that were essentially things that were out of my control, such as the passing away of my father, some friends, and being SA'd 3 times. And these events occurred, pretty close together, really. I mean, a couple months and such like that. And so I was talking to this friend about these things, and everything was fine. Everything was fine, or so I thought, until this one phone call where she just blew up on me and said, "You never talk about it, like about my life or ask how I'm doing." And when she said that, I felt horrible. I really did. And so I said, "Okay, I'm going to work on that." And I started to, be more mindful. And I thought it was going well, and she said it was going well until suddenly it wasn't. And that confused me, so I asked more about it, and she said, "Well, you when you talk about your life, you are always talking about kind of the same things." And that's where playing the victim, or it's your choice to still live there, or what have you, comes in. And that hit me pretty hard at that time because it wasn't as if I was talking about something way back in the past when I was a child. Which, I mean, if I were, that's still relevant. But anyways, I was talking about things that happened a couple months ago, or a year ago, or with the passing of my father 2 or 3 years ago. And, you know, during that time, it, as I said, hit me very hard, and I began to believe that. I began to believe I was playing the victim. I was moping. I was the issue. However, in therapy, my therapist told me, "Are you playing the victim or are you actually a victim?" And, you know, I didn't really believe my therapist at first. It took a while. And this friend, she, at the end of our friendship, she admitted some of her faults that ended our friendship. But really, she thinks that I was the one completely in the wrong. And I just have to say that that is just not the case. I mean, I'm not saying it was all her fault, but I am saying it was definitely not all mine. There, you know, are events in life where it takes a long time to heal from it. And it's not like, sure, like it, I was talking about the same subject. But I was talking about new things about that subject that previously I hadn't really been able to talk about. And it wasn't as if I was doing no work on it. Okay. I was going to therapy, I was going to AA meetings because alcoholism. Um, but it didn't seem like that made a difference. And at one point, she even asked me, "What are you contributing to society?" And that, took me by surprise. Again, one of just the many comments that really made me believe I was just playing a victim. And see, I have this other friend where she said the same thing about me not really talking with her about what she was going through. So that part of it. And she did it in a much more mature way, and we are still friends. And that's because I think a huge part of it is she didn't make me feel necessarily bad for talking about the things I was talking about. It was more so that I wasn't, reciprocating. And it took me a while to also understand that you do need to be selfish sometimes. You do need to focus on yourself, and you do need to, essentially spill your guts. Sometimes, time and time again, depending again on what the subject matter is, such as being essayed or people passing away. So yeah, it's not like you should be selfish to the point where your friends feel they never get to speak. Of course not. But to just assume someone should be able to get over it within 2, 3 months, or something that's even more big, a year or 2 years, it's just asinine. And also throughout that, I was going through a divorce. So there were just a lot of things that I'm not even gonna get into. And I'm thinking about this because recently there have been more things happening in my life where I'm thinking, am I just playing the victim? And my husband and my best friend brought up the fact, you're not. You are the victim of these events. Because they're out of your control, but they do directly affect you, and they are huge. And I'm not going to get into those events. I'm just saying, if someone tells you you're playing the victim, ask yourself, you know, am I? Like, what is the event I'm talking about? Am I doing anything to improve myself or improve the situation and like to heal? What kind of things am I doing that could contribute to that, such as, only talking about yourself? Uh, Consider just, you know, who that person particularly is. Because while I know victim mentality, if you are playing the victim and you're used to that, can take over and you might be blinded a little bit, there are a bunch of things to consider. I think that term has been overused to the point where, oh, you're so sad about your dad's passing a year. It's like the year anniversary, 2 year anniversary. What the hell? Why aren't you over it? And it's like, bitch, because he was my dad, or you were SA'd 2, 3 months ago, and then again shortly after, like a few months later. Why aren't you over that? It's like, oh, I don't know, maybe because I opened this whole thing of trauma that came from my past. It you know it's just I don't understand it, because now that I have a fresh take on it, it's not really a fresh take, but a regained perspective. Because, like I said, I was reminded. I know I wasn't playing the victim. I do know I did some wrong, but I did own up to that, and it's not like I was doing nothing. As I said, I was going to therapy, I was going to AA, all that kind of stuff, and yet still, this person had the nerve to say to me that I was essentially not contributing to society. Oh, I don't think you'd be the kind of person who would vote, even though I'm very vocal about that. And they just thought I basically was a loser. I mean, that's how they made me feel. And I did communicate some of this with them, but ultimately, you know, there's playing the victim, being the victim, and then what she has, which is a superiority complex. But, she isn't a bad person. Just want to put that out there. But again, point of this video, maybe you are playing the victim. Maybe you are the victim. Try to question it. Try to, really look at the facts of the situation rather than just the emotions. And then once you look at the facts, look at the emotions, combine them, go to therapy. I know I keep suggesting therapy. Sorry. But that really does help, at least the questioning, if you don't want to do the therapy. But everyone can benefit from therapy, even if they don't need it. So I just wanted to come on here and say to people who feel that their emotional needs are not being met by their friends, look at those friends. Consider where they're at in their life, but also how they treat you. And if it's anything like the friend I described, it's just not a good fit, perhaps. It could be as simple as that. Oh god, are my nipples showing? Sorry, this is a kind of different style for me. And this is not, let me see. Okay, so there you have it. Are you the victim? Are you playing the victim? Do you have shit friends? That's for you to decide. Ultimately, and you could be wrong with your answer. However, I do know mine. And I hope that you will be able to know yours as well. Thanks.